Hi, this is Razz. This video is RazzvioPRO plugging in. So we're up in my studio in Tassajara, California, and I've got 5 amps behind me that show you the differences between amps. We're going to talk more about those in Amps 101, which is the next class in this series. But for right now, we're going to focus on this PV amp. So most electric violinists will play through an amp at some point in their careers, whether on stage, in a studio, or even at home. So this is meant to show you the basics of getting sound from your electric violin into an amplifier that's built for a guitar. As violinists, we have to work a little bit harder on making the sound work. So I've chosen the PV because it's an amplifier that I've never personally worked with. So I'll be right with you as we figure out how to get a quick, great tone out of a brand new amplifier. So when you're ready to plug in, you'll need your electric violin, your amplifier. Plug in the amplifier first, but don't turn it on quite yet. The next thing we're going to need is an instrument cable, and this is what's going to be conveying the sound between your violin and your amplifier. Now this can be confusing because audio cables tend to look a lot alike, but there are subtle differences. This is an instrument cable, and it's also called a 1/4 inch and a TS cable, or an unbalanced cable. That means tip sleeve, which is how the cable itself is constructed. You can see that as you unscrew it. There's the tip, there's the sleeve. That's the connection type. You can compare that with a cable like this. It looks almost identical. And this is called a TRS, or balanced cable. TRS stands for tip ring sleeve. And the difference is the ring section actually creates a grounding that is great for when you're doing things post-amplification. So this would be something that you would use after amplification, and for instruments pre-amplification, you almost always use an unbalanced TS 1/4 inch cable. So now you're ready to actually plug in your instrument. You're gonna find the input jack, which for me is all the way over here. So I'm gonna slide this forward so you can see it. So I'm gonna take my unbalanced cable, plug it into the input jack, make sure you hear it snap. That means that it's fully seated. Sometimes these can get yanked out in the middle of playing. So if something cuts for no reason, it seems like, always check your cable, make sure that it's still snugly in there. So now the next thing that you're going to do is find the other ends, plug it into the input of your amplifier. Inputs will always be pretty clearly marked. Notice we still haven't turned anything on yet. The next step you need to do is check your volume knob on your violin. This is something that I do almost before every song, even when I'm on stage and I've been playing for 45 minutes, because you will be surprised at how much you will almost automatically turn it off, and then you'll start playing again and it won't be on. So always check that your volume knob is turned all the way up. And now that our signal chain is all set up, we can finally turn on the amplifier. This is always going to be your last stage. If you turn on the amplifier first and then plug everything in, you can get pops, hisses, awful feedback noises. You can even blow your speaker. So always make sure that your signal pathway is set up before you turn on the amplifier. And there we go. You can see here I've put the volume all the way down. That's an extra precaution whenever you plug into a new amplifier. You're not going to know how high or hot it's going to be set. So you always want to start with your volume at 0. So here I'm going to start playing and pull up the volume. Now that seems like a good level for practicing at home. I can work with that. So we've got all of the rest of the settings set to what I call 0, which means that they're set upright. Nothing is being added or taken away. So let's see what that sounds like just with the EQ flat across the board. That's okay, it's a little dead for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a quick trick to get a violin sounding great in an amplifier. So now here you have a basic EQ setting, and this is going to be the most important part when trying to get a good tone out of your amp to start with. The basic trick is a violin and guitar are very different in the sense that we are coming in at a higher frequency distribution. That means that violins are just higher sounding than guitars. So for that reason, instead of pulling down the highs, we're actually going to pull down the mids. This means that I'm pulling down the fundamental problem frequencies of my instrument. I have low strings, so I'm going to boost the lows to kind of compensate for the mids being gone, and I'm going to leave the highs where they are, or maybe even pulled down just a little bit. You pull the highs down too much, you're gonna lose brightness and the instrument's not gonna sound quite like a violin. So now we've adjusted our EQs slightly, and let's see if that sounds any better. Still not enough low end for me, so I'm gonna pull the mids down a bit more, boost that side on the lows. That sounds better. So now this is the best way, I think, to set your amplifiers right off the bat. When you're done practicing, turn off the amplifier first. Pull out the cable, always hold it by the jack, not the cable itself. That way you'll keep your cables nice and you won't have any breakages in the middle of a show. So thank you so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this. If you want to learn more about the rest of the amplifiers that we have down here, please stick around and watch the next video, which will be Amplifiers 101, where we go through the different types of amps and what that means for electric violinists in terms of finding your sound. So please subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and we look forward to seeing you back at RazzvioPRO.